answering these questions. I just copy these questions over here and I press Ctrl A to open another Excel file where I just put my question to read out and answer this here. The first part is that when you have a restaurant data is given as restaurant ID, customer ID, visit date, number of person visited for this and how much they spent across. The next is the customer table where it is given by customer ID, what is the customer name, what is they're belonging to. It is also given the restaurant table where it is given restaurant ID wise restaurant name. Now, what you have to do, the test is saying that you got to take these three tables and merge this to one table. That means you got to create a data model now. When you want to design a data model in Excel, how should you go for doing this? You copy this data over here, take it to the last sheet. Guys, please go on mute. Guys, please go on mute. Take this here. Rename this. Call this my data model in Excel. So how should you get that information here? How should you get that information? I want to get customer age, customer name from this table. To get that in Excel, we have a wonderful
VLOOKUP.
function that is called VLOOKUp. I go for the VLOOKUp with the customer ID. I go to the customer table. I select this table area completely. Go for second and third. I get this my 2 is a column index, 0 is a range lookup to get my customer name. Same way I go for VLOOKUP. The lookup value would be customer ID. I'll go back to my table which is called customer table. I select this all. I go for third and 0 is going to give me the age of the customer over here. I get this here. To get my restaurant name besides to this table, I go for adding my best restaurant name. I go for VLOOKUP with my restaurant ID. I go to the restaurant table. I get this 2 and 0. I say got my restaurant name. So I got my data model output is all set to answer the question. Now, the first question says that out of this, find out the average gap. Read this, guys. This is the question. Find out the average gap between the customer visit to the same restaurant. So how will you answer this question from this? Average days gap. To answer this average days gap, what should you do now, guys? First, before going to answer anything, I must create a first field called visit underscore year. So how should I go for creating this visit year? I use a year function over my visit date, which gives me my visit year. I write visit underscore month. How should I get my month field in SQL? In Excel, I will use a text function over this date value saying that the format is MMM. Here I got my month. That is all fine. Second thing is that I want to get that days gap in customer's visit. How should you get the days gap? It's saying average days gap. The question, you read it out here properly, guys. It's a very interesting question. Average days gap between customer visits to the same restaurant. How should you go for doing this? Select this over here. Go to data, custom sorting, by restaurant ID, by customer date. Go to visit date into ascending to descending order. Since you got this days between that ascending order by this customer ID has gone to restaurant ID 1 on 12th January, then 20th of January, almost like 8 days gap in between. Then it is 20th March, which is almost coming how many days? It is almost going to be 2 months. 20th January to 20th March. This is how data is coming. Now, how should I get this days gap over here? What I do here, guys, I must take the value from this date value here. I did this here. Soon after I get my date values, I put these values like this. So this is called next day visit. Now, how to get the days gap?
If
I'll go for days gap given a condition saying that if
hmm,
this is equal to this, if both are
yes,
same, if both are same, then go for date
did
diff of this visit date to this date with D.
else
Else
the
read this as 0. So hence I got my 0 here. Why? because after this is customer 10, both are not same, so it's not going to give the days gap for them. So I got my average days gap. Fantastic, I got it here. Next, so how to get the average days gap between these two? You got to create a pivot table. Now you create this pivot table in this location. Say okay, by restaurant ID, by customer ID, take this days gap, make this days gap summarize value as average. Right click on this pivot table options, display as a classic pivot table layout. Right click on this, untick the subtotals, design, repeat all item labels. This is my Q1 answer. So my question 1 has been answered in Excel. How I got it? I got it this way. I choose number format. I make it as a number format to 0 decimal values. So I got these are the average days gap. So you can also compare this here, guys. You can also compare this here for this customer 1, which is 2 to 8. 2 to 8, 10. What is the average days gap is coming, guys? 34.11, which is 34 days.
Yes, sir.
So this customer is not visiting every month, is visiting within a gap of, so it's within, it is not visiting in a month more than once or twice. It is visiting in a 34 days gap, is visiting to your store. This is what it got. Second, customer who spent above average, call them as premier, otherwise call them as retail in that restaurant. So that means customer who spent above average, call them customer type as premier or retail. It is going else retail is in the same restaurant. Get each restaurant wise. So how should you get that?
We can create a mix first and then VLOOKUP.
No. So how will you get this value first? You got to first.
We
Sorry,
got it right, sir, from pivot table.
okay. Now in this data, what you'll do here, you first go for creating a pivot table. You go for creating a pivot table. In this pivot table, you take restaurant ID, you take customer ID. Okay. So restaurant ID, customer ID, you take their spend amount. Okay. So first go for selecting this as a pivotal options, display as a classic pivot table layout. Right click, untick the subtotals, design, say repeat all item labels. Now, once you have this data, you go for taking another pivot from this, where you do in Excel that each restaurant ID wise, what is the average spend. Soon after you get these values here, you put this here, average spend. How will you get this? We look up
VLOOKUP.
by restaurant ID
Yes,
wise.
sir. And the VLOOKUP.
You select this data.
2,0.
You got it here.
Don't we need to consider the person count as well? Because we have that factor, right?
No. I just go by simple customer to the same restaurant. What is the total sum?
No.
I write here if this is greater or equal to this pen amount, I call
Then
them as premium.
Premier. Else
Else I
retail.
call this retail.
Retail.
I get this insight from the data, guys.
Yes.
Right? So I
Yes.
tell you one thing what happens, guys, when you go for the interview. They will say, my data is given like this, but can you give me some insights about the customer performance? by each restaurant ID wise. Now you will tell that I'll give an approach like this. I can go for using statistical or quantitative analysis, but if in a qualitative way I want to explain you, I can explain like this. Anybody within the same restaurant spend more than average, we call them as a premier, otherwise we call them retail. Now this is one way to answer. So now this question has been answered, which is called Q to answer. This is the question number 2 has been answered. Now go to the next question. The third question says that okay, this is the third question has been answered. Sorry, this is Q3, and the previous one was Q2. And which one Q1 then? Data model itself is Q1. So fourth question says that get each restaurant wise top 5 highest spending customer. So how will you go for getting this? Select this data, go for inserting a pivot table. Now select the pivot table over here. In this pivot table, take restaurant ID, customer ID, and their
and
sum of
spent
spend.
amount twice we can take it.
Now we'll go for display this as a classic pivot table layout. Untick the subtotals. Here you choose top 5. I got it, guys. This is
Yes.
called Q for answer. Guys, there are so many questions I can create out of this, but this is what Q for answer. Now, the last question is saying that, oh no, there are two more. Get each restaurant wise unique customer count, total visit, total number of members they have, total spend. Over that, calculate your spend per visit, spend per member, spend per what you call this as a spend per visit here, spend per visit, average spend per visit, and spend per member, average spend per member. You need to calculate over that. This is what is going to be asked. It's a very good question. How to answer this? Answer this question, I go to this data, I go for insert a pivot table. Now this time when I go for pivot table, I must choose add this data to the data model. I get this here. Right, guys? Now within this data, I want to get each restaurant ID wise. Unique count of customer. I say customer ID into this, but this value should be shown as I have selected data model, value field settings are shown as distinct count. So this is the distinct count which is coming 50. Next, I'll take the same customer IDs here. So that means 405 total visit, out of which 50 is the unique customer who visited, because it's a random number which I took it is all coming 50. That is all fine. Total number of members, those who visited. This is the total number of members. And how much total spend? This is the total spend is happening here. Soon after you get this data, this is all answer your question. Take this data, paste it over here. Once you have this information, get spend per person. How much spend per person, guys? Total spend divided by unique count of customer.
Mhm.
Now, spend per visit. How will you count this? Total spend by this. Now, spend per person. How will you get it? Or spent per member. How will you get this, guys?
Somehow
Spend amount.
spent by number of persons.
Got it. Right? So these are what? Format cell. Make it all into currency format with Indian rupees. You got this here, guys?
Yes, sir.
Now, spend per visit, everything is answered now. Spend per member is also given there. Right, guys? Each restaurant ID was clear. So this is the question number 5 has been answered. Now the last question says that get each restaurant voice per month unique customer visit and the total spend. How will you go for getting this? Insert unique means what? You will go for creating this by adding this to the
Data.
view model.
Yes.
You go to the right here. By each month, which is visit month, get customer ID as a count and their total spend. This count should be shown as what? Distinct. Enable settings, distinct count. What is it? Each restaurant ID. Okay.
Yes.
Restaurant name. Now is a pivot table options. Display as a classic pivot table.
Classic.
I'll take the subtotals. No subtotals. Design, report, layout, repeat. Now you got this. Each restaurant ID wise every month how many unique customers are visiting and how much they spend. Can you see this, guys? Guys,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so this is called
Yes,
as
sir.
a question 6 answer. Now these all questions to be answered in your SQL. Can we do that, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, yeah, that I will do. But do you know how to do this? Tell me how many of you feel like you can answer this question?
I can do it, sir.
That I know.
sir.
Okay, ठीक है. Go on mute, guys. Go on mute. Go on mute. Okay. Now let me go and do this in SQL. I open SQL server here. Right. Create database crash test. Now use my database which is called crash test. Opening this crash test, I right click task data, import data. I go for reading this data from an Excel file, browse this file location, all data. Next. Choose it here, data decline 11.0. Next. Next. Which is the file I want to read here, guys? One is called, क्या है वो फाइल का नाम? restaurant transaction table. And customer master table. Right here, select star from transaction underscore TBL. Select star from one is called transaction table. Another one is what, guys?
Restaurant master table, customer master.
Select star from restaurant इसको I run this query, I got these tables here. How will I go for design data model? Select A dot restaurant ID, then C dot restaurant name, which I'll get it from here. Right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right?
A dot customer ID.
Then A dot customer ID. Then I'll
B
take
dot customer.
B dot customer name. B dot age. Then A dot visit date. Then A dot number of persons. Then A dot spend underscore amount. From go for transaction table as A table. Left join customer master table as B on A dot customer ID equal to B dot customer underscore ID. Again, left join restaurant master table as C on A dot restaurant underscore ID equal to C dot restaurant underscore ID. If I run this program, where if I run this program, I get my output is coming here. Now what I'll do here, guys, I'll get something called year of A dot visited as visit underscore year. Then date name month of
Visited.
edit visit date. Use of substitution
1,3.
as visit Are you getting this, guys? Right?
Yes.
So once you have this data ready, you save this into restaurant model output version 1. This is the table which you created now. Run this query, get this done. So now if you say select star from this table, you get the output as this. Right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Now you got to get that average days visit to this data. How will you get the average days visit? Yeah? Live with partition. Very nice. How do you go for doing this? Select a dot star all the fields. But it's good to have write
Lag.
all the field name. Called restaurant underscore ID, restaurant underscore name. Write it down. Customer underscore ID, customer underscore name. You can avoid this, but I will write down. Age, and I go for visit underscore date. Here, after this visit date, I can get this next visited. How will I get it? Lag
Of
of
date one.
lag
Visit
of
date.
visited with
Comma 1.
over
Partition by.
addition by what?
Here should be
Hang
restaurant ID, customer ID.
ID. Order by
Order by 1 comma 2. Yeah, restaurant ID, customer ID. Okay, visit date. See, order by visit date, ascending order.
right
Yes.
as next,
Next, visit date.
then number of persons spent underscore amount. Can you see this? Can you see this, guys?
Yes.
Now sum of spent amount. Yes or no? Okay, I'll treat that separately now. So first I'll go for visit underscore year. Then I'll say visit underscore month. Now I will do this. Sum of spent over partition by. Right? How should I go for looking at this?
Restaurant ID.
Now I will go for looking at its restaurant underscore ID, comma customer underscore ID. Right? Order by what? Customer ID. As what? Rest customer spent. How much they spent it? That is coming here. Then you got to calculate here average spent addition by restaurant ID, order by restaurant ID.
Restaurant ID.
This is called restaurant
Average spent.
average. Now look, do this from table name as this. Then group by of what? All these fields right here. Every field.
Sir, why group by?
Why group by?
We have used partition by over. Not required, right?
It is required. It is required. I'll tell you how. Now after this, when I run my program, guys, I get this here. This is the average spent. Is this? Now I'll give a condition within the same program saying that case, I write this way, divided by, like this, not divided, greater or equal to this value. This is the condition which I want to give. I write here condition saying that case when sum of customer ID spent is greater or equal to this value, then call premier.
Premier.
Else retail.
Retail. Sir, in condition you have to remove as.
Okay. Customer segment. Where I have written as?
In the
Okay,
condition,
okay,
yes.
okay, okay,
Yes.
yes, correct. It should not be here, I guess. Yes, it is not there. Now, if I run this query, I got my table here, right? In one go, I got everything ready for me. Who are the premier, who are the retail, who are the, everybody is a premier. Hmm? The condition is what? Let me see this. This is retail, right? What's a premier? Case when sum of spend amount addition by of this is greater or equal to average spent, or this is going to then premier. Else is going to retail as customer segment. What is wrong with that? Okay, let me try this format. This value as N0. Format this value as N0. Now, sum of spend amount over partition by customer ID. Run this query here. Okay, 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 okay. Got it, got it, got it, got it, got it, got it, got it. So this is what the sum of spend, and this is what the average spend. So first, what you have to do here, this is by customer ID wise. Okay, you got the average spend by customer ID wise. No, this is correct. So this is going to be restaurant ID and customer ID. Now this is also using by customer ID. What is the average spend, right? Because each restaurant ID wise you want to identify who are spending above average. Now based on this, when you go for this condition, this is also going to be by custom underscore ID, and this is going to be custom underscore ID. This the condition is matching. Now if you run the program, you get this output is coming. Yes. Now you get it here. This again. Why? This is average. Right, right.
Sir, when spent amount is above average, then we call it, right? So,
So I'm saying
hmm,
the customer and the customer restaurant ID wise, customer ID wise, what is the total spend? Now restaurant is total overall restaurant average spend. You need to get it here so that you can map it to customer. What you are doing here in this Excel file. We are first selecting here by restaurant ID wise, by customer ID wise, what's the total sum? We got it here in the output, right? 31,826.
yes,
Next is what you are selecting restaurant ID wise. What is this?
total average
Average,
of total.
average total spend.
Yeah, that is based on restaurant, not customer.
Restaurant
Only
ID, na?
restaurant.
So what we have taken here?
Yes,
So
we are taking with customer ID.
this is what? This sum
Sum
of
of
spend,
spent.
right? This
Yes.
is okay. So this
Yeah,
is going to be sum
sum
of spend.
below. Yeah, here we should not be taking customer ID.
No, we are not. So if we do not take customer ID here, I got your point.
Hmm. But I think, sir, in the same query, it will not fetch correct way.
No, it will. Today morning it was working fine for me. It is sum of, okay. First you will go for commenting out this. We'll see how it is working.
Hmm.
So when we run this program, we get this here. Why it is coming 3657? First it took this way, total sum, then it took restaurant ID wise, what is the average?
Sir, our average should be over the total sum.
Hmm.
So,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
Average by
yeah, the,
restaurant ID, comma, customer underscore ID. Let's see. What does it give me? Hmm.
sir, what I'm telling is after lag, we have that sum amount, right, sir? On that sum, we have to calculate the average. Then we will get the correct value.
Which one? So
Here
you're
we
saying
have
you have
that.
to create another table for this, right?
Yeah, so actually on that sum amount, sum of the total spent customer wise, on that we have to do average. So now it is taking individual value and creating an average.
Correct.
So that is what is, that's the reason the value is less, sir.
Correct. Okay, no issue. So that is fine. So that means we have to go for two separate queries to do that, right? It's not going to happen in one
Yes.
query. Okay,
Yes.
no issues. We can do this way. So first of all, there is no point of taking this as well here, right? So
The sum of spend we can still keep it here. And the next table we will just use on that column, we will use average.
hmm, hmm. Okay, so we'll go for sum of spent underscore amount over partition by restaurant ID, comma, custom underscore ID, order by custom underscore ID, as called rest customer underscore spend. If we run this program here by using this query, we got this output. It is showing here by restaurant by customer is what the total spend. Sorry, Asuch, thanks. Asuch. Okay. So this is how you got this. So you save this to as a new table into version 2. If you run this query, you got this version 2 output is created. Now select star from version 2 where we can have this output, right? We can also calculate here average days graph. So how will you go for creating this average days graph? If we can do this within the same query here, so we can say drop table and table this. We'll drop it. Now let me create this. So how to get the average days gap guys here? So you will take it the same query saying that date diff. Date diff is what? It is going to be this date to visit underscore date as days underscore gap. But in this we have to write this is day. If we write like this and run this query, commands completed successfully. I got this question answered here. I got the days gap, right? Now the next is how to get this premier customer to this. Okay, we'll do it. So what we can do here in this case, guys, rather using what you can call this as you write here select restaurant underscore ID, comma custom underscore ID called average spent underscore amount as called average spent. This is going to be not by restaurant by customer. This is the restaurant ID wise. What is the average spend? You got it here. Now from this table, say group by restaurant underscore ID. If you run this program, guys, you get restaurant ID wise. What is the average spend? Again, is coming 3664. No, it should be coming 5-digit number. So what we have to do now,
Uh, Sir, that will not be the spent amount, sir. That will be restaurant customer spent amount. That we need to give it there.
no, objective is what? To get this, once you have this, we'll go for restaurant and customer ID wise total spend. We got it here. Now here restaurant ID wise average spend we are getting from this. Are you getting this? From this table only we get this average spend. I'm trying to get that. So if I want to get that, so what I'll do here, first I say customer underscore ID, then I take it as sum of spent from this table, right? Customer underscore ID. If I run this query, I get this output here. Now I save this output into, let's say this is the third one. And once I have this, select star from this table, I got these values. Now I say select restaurant underscore ID, then average of sum of spent as average spent from this table, group by restaurant ID. If I do so, now I get the right output. Can you see this? Can you see this? Now,
Yes.
what we can do here, selecting this, select star from this table. Let's say I apply the same query over here. Select restaurant underscore ID, say custom underscore ID. Now write here sum spent. So over this sum spent, you write average of sum spent over partition by restaurant ID, order by restaurant ID as average spent. Here I'll give a condition case when this is greater or equal to this value, then else return end as custom underscore segment from this is the table group by all these fields. If I run this query, I get this output here. Can you see this? Right, guys? So this is the question number. Question number 3 has been answered. So this is called Q3. So how to answer Q1? Average days gap. You have already got this table, which is this table. So select star from this table. If you run this program, you get this output. You say select restaurant ID, customer ID, then average of the field which you have it called days gap, days underscore gap as average days underscore gap visits. From this table, group by this two. If you run this query, you get these are the average days gap. Can you see this, guys? So this is your question number 2 answer. Now going to the last two questions. Get each restaurant ID was top 5 customers. Okay. This is question number 4. Question number 4 answer. Each restaurant ID was top 5 customers. What will do first? Select restaurant name, customer underscore name, sum of spend underscore amount as spend from this table and say group by these two columns. What is happening? There is no field called customer name. What is the field name? Check it out. Cost name. Okay. Run this program. You got the customer name here, right? So restaurant ID wise customer name you got order by 1. If you do so, you get each restaurant ID wise customers. Now you got to get the top 5. So what you'll do here? You save this into this is going to 4. Now select star from
Top.
this table. So guys, this is what the disadvantages of SQL Server. For every such conditional calculation, you got to create multiple. Now you can create subqueries to do that, but that is little complicated, but we can do it. Now in this you write select restaurant name, customer name, spent, use rank over, right? Bracket start,
Partition by
partition by
restaurant name.
restaurant name, order
Order
by spent in
amount.
descending order, H
Ranking.
from
V4 version.
you got this ranking now here, guys. You got to save this into 5. Once you create 5, you write select star from this where ranking is less or equal to 5. That is how, guys, it is very much what is happening. You run this query, you get this output. Select star from this table. You got each restaurant is top 5 customers. Can you see this, guys? So to answer this question number 4, see how many ways you are going through. That is how SQL programming is. Last, each restaurant ID was unique customer. How will you go for getting this? This is question number 5 answer. Select star from which table? Go to 2. Aliso. Asuchi Sankesa. Got it here?
Mm.
Right? So in this, I'll write select restaurant name distinct count of distinct customer name as unique customers. Right? Count of customer name as total visits. Sum of number number of number of persons number number of persons as members. Then sum of spend underscore amount as total underscore spend from this table. Group by restaurant name. If you do so, you got these values. Does it make sense, guys? Now, once you have these values, you will go for calculating as what? What is the average spend? How will you get the average spend here? You'll take this field name, this divided by this divided by this. So you will need to save this to into this is table number 6. What is it? 5, 6. Now using this select star from this table number 6. How should you answer this? Select a dot star comma a dot total underscore spent divided by a dot unique customers as average spent per person. Are you getting it? Are you getting this, guys? Guys, are you getting this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is by total underscore visits. How will I write this? This is called average spent per visit. Then you'll go for writing this average by member. Average spent per member from this table as a. You got this, guys, here? Guys, can you see this? You can use format all this. You got it here? Guys, can you see this? Now the
Yes.
last question. Question 6 answer और उसके बाद मुझे भागना है. Select star from this table which is 2. You got every restaurant ID wise, month wise, unique customer total spend. Select restaurant name, visit, month, count of distinct customer name as unique subscribers. Sum of spent underscore amount as total underscore spent from this table group by these two. Now order by 1 comma 2. Got it guys here? Right? So we answered in SQL programming